Hey, so what's up, guys? I'm filming this from the forest of Hyperborea, um, and it's a good day. A bit quiet, a lot of shit happened lately, um, and yeah, I wanted to talk about that. Okay, I've previously described my worldview in detail, right? You kind of already know the basics of what I believe. Now I want to tell you what it would basically look like in practice. Basically, if let's say um, if I was dictator of Germany, if I somehow took power, I don't know how. We'll see. Um, let's say I've seized total control of Germany. Here's what would happen. First off, a total restructuring of the governmental system. The entire system is um, basically fucked. Every single bureaucrat and governmental worker is a corrupt accomplice, and they all need to be fired and blacklisted immediately. And the entire system structured in a new way, top down, probably in a sort of corporatist system with specific syndicates relating to specific um, occupations and regions. And how would the political system work? It's kind of like monarchy, but like the Roman model, where it doesn't really necessarily have a fixed inheritance. The next ruler would be um, the oldest, the oldest, um, like either, like it would be, what's the name? Um, Basically like seniority. The next heir would be the next available family member which is eligible for ruling. But it can't be an older person. It must be someone who's younger than the previous ruler themselves. So the same generation, basically. Like mostly, like if the ruler doesn't have kids, if he has kids, the eldest child would be the new ruler. But if he doesn't, then it would be the next oldest sibling, like the brother or the sister. But only in both cases, only if they can be meaningfully expected to have offspring. Like people who are like child free or like just don't have kids for other reasons, they wouldn't be they wouldn't be eligible. And um, so that's the political system, right? A corporatist kind of monarchy with like seniority inheritance and conditional seniority inheritance. The ants are crawling on my phone. I can see it. And the next political action would be the nationalization of basically all industries and subsumation into the corporate structure where it's controllable. Like including media, there should not be an independent media because independent media always means foreign media. Um, it needs to be state controlled, not necessarily for the sake of censorship, but for the sake of curtailing foreign influence. And yeah, basically we should exterminate all judges and most journalists which are currently practicing and have practiced in the last 20 years. Probably everyone that's alive. They're all guilty. They are guilty of collaboration. They are guilty of unspeakable crimes. Judges, especially, they are directly responsible for every crime of every person that they let go without appropriate punishment. And if the punishment, that's the thing, that would be a new policy, that if a convicted person, which a judge convicts, reoffends, the judge shares the penalty that the new crime, that the criminal has to suffer for the new crime. So if a person was previously convicted by a judge and then commits like a theft, the judge would go into prison as an accomplice to theft. So that would encourage judges to actually be serious about their job, because right now they aren't. Generally, we treat doctors the same way. If someone dies under the auspices of a doctor, he has to carry this responsibility for the death, but judges are completely immune to that. There would be no judicial immunity. There would be no political immunity either. Any concept of legal immunity for anyone would be lifted. And this is something I'm very passionate about, is total legal equality. Everyone has to account for the crimes. There are no lessening circumstances. Total responsibility. We should treat everyone like adults, especially the people in power. And right now we are not treating the people in power like adults. They know what they're doing. They know the harm they're causing, and they should be appropriately punished. This applies to like therapists too. If a therapist has someone in therapy and that person kills themselves afterwards, that therapist is an accomplice to suicide. Is like basically a murderer and should be put in prison, right? That's just fair. That's the appropriate response. And another issue, which is the most existential issue that Germany is facing right now, obviously, is migration. We should deport everyone who's not German. Everyone, regardless if they have been here for 200 years. Everyone who's not German has to go. I don't really count, like, I don't know. The thing is, technically, we should treat everyone as adults. That would be, according to my philosophy, as equals. We should see the soul behind the body, the soul behind the mind. Everyone has different biological and psychological differences which affect their behavior, but the soul is prime. The soul can always overcome all these impulses, and that means that there's no lessening circumstance. Their insanity should not be a defense. Low IQ should especially not be a defense. A differing culture should especially not be a defense. Like if a migrant rapes somebody, and like the judge, and I've heard this so many times. This has taken place hundreds of times in the last year alone in Germany, where like a supposedly teenage migrant has been acquitted of like severe crimes like rape, murder, and all of that, because their culture doesn't include the idea that rape is bad, and second, they have like a retarded level IQ, and this is not a defense. Retards do not usually do this stuff. They know this, they have a good moral compass, and we should treat everyone the same according to responsibility, which obviously means the pathological behavior of certain cultures, races, and minorities in general is not because of these behaviors, it's because they are bad people and they should be punished accordingly. There's not going to be any tolerance for cultural differences. Cultural differences can exist, obviously, but you still have to accept that you are not bound by your programming. You are still a human. You still have the inborn spiritual ability to discern between good and evil. And if you can't do that because you are too like bound by your impulses, if you are not enlightened enough, then you shouldn't live. You should be killed. And then maybe after certain reincarnations, if you are being killed again and again for your crimes, maybe at some point you're going to be enlightened. At some point you are going to be a human, an actual human, not some sort of Heilig. And like basically all blacks, for example, are Heiligs, which do not have an awakened soul. They are not aware that they can overcome their biological and psychological and cultural handicaps, and this is why they are right now mostly very bad people. But they do not have to be. It's their personal moral failing that they still act black, basically. Um, they I I'm not a racist in the conventional sense that I say, oh, they can't control it, they are retarded and they are a bad race, they have a biologically low IQ. No, that's not an excuse for anything. You should be held to white standards, and white people should be held to the same standards. And like white people have their own pathologies, right? The judges that let off migrants free, scot free and all of that, these are white people, and they act this way because of their own pathologies which they haven't overcome, and their souls aren't strong enough to overcome their own urges to be like shitlibs, and they should be punished for that too. I think I'm totally in favor of total Heilig death, right? I think all Heiligs, all those who do not have an awakened soul, should be killed over and over and over again until their soul awakens. Because like there's no actual permanent death, right? Reincarnation is real. So the death penalty isn't as serious as you think. It's a practical way of policing. And it's a practical way of rehabilitation because like the soul doesn't get destroyed. It gets stronger with every reincarnation. So it's not necessarily killing someone. There's no such thing as killing someone. You can't kill anyone. We are all immortal already. We lose our physical memories because those are stored in the mind, right? Not in the soul. The soul has its own eidetic memory, but that's something most people can't access. I can't even access it yet. I think I am in the process of awakening. I'm in the process of becoming, like, what's the Gnostic term? Not a pneumatic, it's another thing. Anyways, I'm a huge fan of the death penalty, not because it kills people, but because it doesn't kill people. It's just a practical way of rehabilitation and of policing and giving people a second chance. That's my opinion. So, anyways, we have to actually deport everyone who isn't German, not just because of what they're doing, but because if we do not address this situation right now, their demographics, they have so many children. And in 2 or 3 generations, they will be the majority, and then they are going to exterminate us all. Or at least try. They might lose. White people have won with worse odds, but the risk is too high. And sometimes personal, strict moral codexes have to cede the point of priority. Like simple pragmatic self-preservation has to sometimes take precedence, and the German people have to continue to exist at all costs. So yeah, it's not necessarily because they aren't right. If the same situation was like with Poles, who and they had like that kind of culture, they kinda do, but like the situation isn't that drastic right now, then the problem would be exactly the same, and they would also be deported. Because right now, race is a very clear, not 100% accurate, but a very reliable indicator of moral character. It doesn't have to be and shouldn't have to be that way, but right now it is, and we have to accept that fact. And I'm not elevating white people, especially. I harshly criticize white people for the way they are behaving. Their own pathology is mostly self-destructive, obviously. So that's also an issue. Like black people are violent and impulsive and sadistic, yes. White people are also pathological in the same way because they're smotheringly oppressive. They totally lack the capability of respecting other races as equals and enemies and rivals. And they're shitlibs, basically. They're in the unkindest way possible. And my point is, well, we have to get them all out, all of them, regardless of what they did, because right now we just need a reset. a demographic reset to protect ourselves and figure out what the fuck is going on, right? To quote the Antichrist. Um, and there's nothing in the Christianity that says you have to accept the extinction of your own race to serve like higher capitalistic benefits, like some kind of huge corporate monopolies have decided that white people aren't reliable consumers and aren't reliable workers, so we need to replace them with Indians. There's nothing in Christianity that says that self-preservation is not the same, is somehow conflicting with like loving your neighbor. You can love your neighbor, you do not have to like him. But loving your neighbor means you respecting him as an equal. And that's what I do, despite being racist. Um, so, yeah, another thing is like, um, there should be, I am in favor of universal basic income. I think all forms of welfare should be replaced with that so that we have an equal playing field because, yes, in the current economy, it is impossible to survive without welfare. You can have 50 jobs. Most people have like 2 or 3 jobs, but one job should be enough to feed a large family in an own home and with like at least 2 cars. And right now, it doesn't do that in the slightest. And this is part of why the white population is collapsing, because like white people have the discernment and long-term planning to understand they cannot sustain a family in this economy in this unsafe environment, so they aren't starting a family. Other races do not have that, so they have a demographic advantage, even though they do not have a long-term advantage, because they actually suffer from the same economic issues, even though it's strongly alleviated by taxpayer-funded welfare. They still have the same problem. And when the economy collapses, and it will collapse, they will be affected too. And then when the state collapses because the economy collapses, they will be massacred. So that's also why I tell them to get the fuck out right now as long as they can. Because I don't want them to get hurt either. But right now, they are so arrogant, they are so fueled by like the feeling of winning that they do not realize that there is no winning here. Europe is going to collapse. Europe is going to get fucked. Europe is going to be one of the worst places to live in the entire world for a long time. And you do not want to be here right now. And you do not want to be here in the next 20 years. So get out. You have a homeland that you can return to. We don't. We have to stay here. Um, get the fuck out. Save yourself. So another thing I am in favor of is like free speech. Free speech is very important. It shouldn't be active calls to overthrow the government, because obviously the government is in that setting would be benevolent and needs to protect itself. Um, but otherwise, like artistic freedom too should be as free as possible without the either the production or the exposure of this art piece causing harm to someone, or societal harm, or cultural harm, psychological harm. So that's the exemption. This is why certain products which are illegal right now should stay illegal. Um, but otherwise, free speech and artistic freedoms should be as much respected as possible. Another thing I'm actually very passionate about, and this is like a spiritual thing. I fully believe in religious freedom. Yeah, right. I do believe everyone has the right to find their way to God on their own conditions, on their own terms. So, but I'm not in favor of institutional or organized religion. Not at all. I think it should be outlawed. I think all churches, mosques, and communities and temples should be disbanded, banned, foundation of new ones banned, and we should like basically turn all the churches and mosques and all of that into museums, because they should not be places of worship. There's only one place of worship, that is your own temple, your body, your relationship with God. There is no other intermediary, no priest, no imam, no rabbi can help you with that. They will only put themselves between you and God, and they will become your new God. And this is why all forms of organized religion is idol worship. That's what it is. Because as long as you put something between yourself and God, you are worshipping that thing. And then you have another God but God. And that's idol worship. That's the idea of that. It's not just paganism. Idol worship is a very specific thing. And it's the worship of something that isn't God. Like the church, like the Pope, like the Ummah, like the state, like politics, like social justice, like democracy, like human rights. Those are all idol worshipping. And this would actually also like kind of solve the Jewish question. Like I have thought about the Jewish question, and most right wingers have a very clear answer to that, and that's like the final solution, right? And I totally oppose that. I totally oppose genocide of any kind. I do not think the Jewish faith should disappear in any way, and especially not Jewish people. They have a right to exist just like everyone else, and they have a right to personally define their path to God like everyone else. And I think this concept of like freedom of religion, but outlawing of organized religion would allow the possibility of, like, the issue with Jews specifically, but also Muslims and some other groups, is that they put the loyalty of that they aren't loyal to the state. That's the issue, right? Jews are particular in that regard because they are an ethno-religion. They see themselves as a nation. This is a huge problem if they are in any nation other than Israel, right? Um, so, and Israel won't exist for long. It's going to be destroyed very soon. The way it works, there are going to be massive, brutal, and indiscriminate reprisals, similar to the reprisals against Germans after World War II, because they kind of act the same way, right? And they do not. The issue is obviously the Germans kind of took accountability and accepted that it was kind of their fault. The Jews will not do that. They have a culture of not taking responsibility, never accepting accountability. They always blame this magic word called anti-Semitism, which only really explains the phenomenon without the causes, and the causes are always Jewish behavior. So yeah, that's kind of on you, right? And obviously on me, but the goal is actually to turn Jews in Germany to Germans who follow the Jewish faith, because like you can follow any faith you want, right? You just have to self-identify as a German first. Your loyalty has to be to Germany, and this is not necessarily, this kind of conflicts with the general philosophical ideas I have, but it doesn't conflict with the pragmatic execution of these ideas. Because while yes, the German nation is a social construct, and we should see each other as humans first, with souls, that doesn't mean that hostile forces, hostile nations do see it the same way. They still think in a nationalistic concept, and they will exploit any such weakness, such as some sort of universalism, which doesn't have any checks and balances. And therefore the German nation is a very pragmatic and existential framework to protect our safety as Germans, right? Because we are Germans. If we are stateless, we would be totally exposed. And as long as we have a nation, we are part of that nation, and we will be seen as part of that nation forever. So we cannot really disentangle from that. So we need to maintain the German state in its current demographic form, preferably in a previous demographic form, because right now there's like 10 million foreigners, which have to go probably more. And yeah, you can't really escape nation. It's just a system. It's like from a game theory perspective, you are in an extreme disadvantage if you're like the only person in the world which acts non-racistly. Everyone else is racist and will stay racist, and you can't really turn a black person into a shitlip, right? Even supposed black leftists still fundamentally found their entire belief system on the benefit of the black race primarily. They are only leftists because leftism benefits blacks. If leftism stopped benefiting blacks, they wouldn't be leftist. White people do not think like that, and that's what makes us extraordinarily vulnerable. So that's a huge issue. We have to somehow reconcile the notion of fundamental equality of agency with the reality of tribalism, and that requires a very strong nation state which can defend itself, which can defend its demographic makeup, and which is willing to go to any length necessary to maintain its continued existence. If necessary, create a system of deterrence, like the Samson option. Like, we need nuclear bombs. We could produce nuclear bombs. We are an almost nuclear power. Like, according to like most sources, we could build like 20 nuclear warheads in a week if we wanted to, and we should build the largest nuclear arsenal of the planet, preferably. We won't necessarily get to that point, but we should at least try to get to that point. Even just one nuke is enough, but in the case of nuclear war, which is inevitable, the general taboo against nukes in general is going to go away. So we need an actual practical deterrent, a weapon which we are willing to use. So we need a lot of nuclear bombs, and we need at least enough to at least exterminate a whole different nation that is attacking us with nuclear weapons, and then enough to do it another time. We're only going to need to do it one time, but the second time won't happen because then we have done it. So then our deterrence is credible. That's the general idea, right? So if I have to guess, we need to exterminate like a nation of the size of Poland, for example, we're going to need about 200 warheads. So 400 should be a reasonable number. Anyways, what else did I want to talk about? Generally, I'm actually more in favor of like progressive policies in other regards, like UBI, and there shouldn't be any minority protections because we don't need them. If you have an actual equal legal system, everyone is going to get protected from discrimination anyways. So we don't need special protections for anyone. And we shouldn't use them because that's a form of patronage. That's a form of oppression, right? That strips people of their agency and turns them into a client group, a client class. But sure, the transgenders should have the full right to transition and all of that. Like, I don't really oppose that in any way. Like, transition is also like real, mostly because like gender is kind of a social construct and you can change that pretty well. The biology of gender is obviously a reality, but it's not really one that's relevant in most cases. So we don't need to address it really that much. Unless you have to go to the like urologist or like gynecologist or something, you don't really need to talk about your biological gender, right? So yeah, trans rights or something. Total gender equality also, like women and men are different. Biologically, psychologically, we have different like impulses, complexes. We have different tendencies, yes, but we share the same general soul essence, so we should all be treated in the same way, held to the same standards. And if a woman can't compete with a man, then maybe she shouldn't, but the other way too. So there shouldn't be any necessary hierarchy, especially not an institutional one, because that's inefficient. There's always going to be outliers in any regard. There's always going to be a woman that can perform better than men, and there's always going to be a man that's going to perform better than woman. And completely locking them out of opportunities because of their gender is retarded, frankly, and inefficient. We are losing out on a lot of talent in that regard. Um, so yeah, otherwise, yeah, you guys obviously still an issue. That's something we are going to need to do, um, mostly because of the state of our economy, right? We are not rich enough so that the community itself can take care of like the vulnerable and the disabled. There should be, there should be a universal draft. We should restructure the entire Bundeswehr to a defensive stance, and for that we need a large conscript army of at least 5 million people. That sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. It would be one of the largest armies on the planet, but you can't, you can never have enough guns. You can never have enough soldiers. Um, and who knows who's going to attack us? Sometimes maybe we have to fight an all front war. Like, what if like we take over and then NATO is going to decide, we want to keep these guys in, so and we're going to invade them, and like that would be the third world war against Germany, right? And every world war against Germany was more brutal and more exterminatory than the last. A third world war against us would result in our extinction. They would try to exterminate us all. They have already mostly tried to exterminate most of us in World War II. They have deported 20 million people from their homes. They have enslaved nearly as many people and kidnapped them to their nations to serve as slave labor. They have brainwashed our people, so in order to deliberately cause our extinction. Um, what has been done after World War II is openly genocide, and we can't let this happen again. If another nation ever attacks us, we are going to have to nuke the world. We are going to have to nuke the world. We need a Samson option, and that's the only context. We shouldn't wage any offensive wars, even though we we legally and historically deserve to have half of Poland's territory or more. Um, there's no need to reclaim it aggressively by force if we like can maintain some sort of peace in any other way. If they attack us, we should wipe them from the map. We should take all of it, because like having Slavs on our borders is like an existential threat. Obviously, we have learned that in World War II. Um, so we should like take the entire nation over and deport the whole Polish population. But that's just for self-defense, right? If they attack us, we need a great trial against them. But they won't attack us if we're strong enough. And in that case, we can have peaceful relations with them. We can trade with them. We can even have maybe open borders treaties with them. We can, I don't know, we can be in an alliance with them. It's unlikely because like the Poles are rabidly anti-German and they will attack us over and over and over again, and as they have in the past, and they will only stop if we are gone. So we need to finish this war at some point. Um, the obvious geopolitical issue is that we are in the same habitat. We are both part of the North European plain. We have very similar civilizational profiles, and while Germany became a great power that should reasonably geopolitically be allied to Russia, they have no such ability. They are basically surrounded by Germany and Russia, so they have to at least take out one of their rivals permanently. And they can't take out Russia because they have nukes and they have their own Samson option, right? So they can do that to them. So right now they can do that to us. So if we take power, and if it becomes obvious that we are not going to be a slave, that we are not going to be a colony of the Western Empire, then they are going to attack us, and then we are going to have to wipe them off the map as much as if we can. because that war is going to be an existential one. They are going to try to eradicate us, and we should try to eradicate them. Um, I pray that this won't happen, because like they are also a Christian race. They are similar to us more than you expect. Um, it would be basically a fratricidal war, but history has shown that they want that war, so we have to expect it. We shouldn't start it under any circumstances. We shouldn't start it, even though we have legitimate territorial claims on them. We shouldn't start it. But by God, if it starts, we have to end it permanently. And otherwise, there should be like a geopolitical realignment. We can't stay part of the Western Empire because the Western Empire hates us and is killing us actively. So, like we have to leave like the EU. We have to leave NATO. We have to leave basically all UN institutions. We have to leave OPEC. Are we in OPEC? I don't know. Or what was the other term? I don't know. You know what I mean. We have to leave all these institutions and become like an autonomous, independent state similar to North Korea. Pursue autarky as much as we can, resource-wise. If we can't, we have to import it from non-Western nations like Iran, which we should realign ourselves to. The most important thing, actually, is to maintain some sort of agreement with Russia. We need a good treaty with Russia. Bismarck already knew that, and he was totally right about that. We need to secure a somehow, and that means we need to scare Poland into submission so that they won't attack us. And the best way to do that is to promise, if they attack, it will be a two-front war that they will lose because Russia's in the way. So that's the way forward. Um, we shouldn't also wage war against NATO. We won't win that war. We are not going to win that war. That's way too many countries, most of them nuclear. We are going to fucking die in that war if we ever start it. So don't start any war at all. Purely defensive. We need a huge conscript army. We need very good weaponry, national weaponry. We need to build all our weapons ourselves, right? We can't rely on others. We can't buy F-35s or something. We can't import like Russian tanks. We have to build it all on ourselves. And somehow we need to reconstruct our entire industry, which has been completely stripped in the last 30 years. And that's going to be like very difficult. And it's not going to be easy for most people. Because like, let's be frank, we already live in austerity, like, right? We already live in starvation level environment. We already don't have enough money to survive, and it's not as the poverty isn't as obvious because white people do not really show it that much. They are good at planning, so the cost is carried by the missing future generation, which we have to restore, right? We have to start making babies again. But the issue is here, I take parentage very seriously, more seriously than most parents, even good ones. Parentage is a full-time job, and it's not one you can take any day off. It's not one you can take even an hour off. The moment you decide to have a child and carry it to term, and you don't have an abortion, you don't use contraception, you don't use anything, you decide to carry it to term, this is your life now. Your personal life as an independent person is over. Your life, you are now the slave of the child you have set into this world, right? This is just objectively, and this is why it's important to actually make the choice a choice. So abortion should be available as much as possible, free, frequent, safe, free, safe, and frequent, because most people do not have what it takes, and they shouldn't be parents, and there's no shame in that. I'm not I wouldn't be a good parent. There's no shame in admitting that. Most people aren't. So the actual honorable thing you can do is not deny that, but instead own up to that, know your own limits, and just don't have children. Because and yes, the um, the next generation will be smaller than even now. Obviously, we are going to have like a demographic collapse which you haven't seen. Um, so the only solution really is those parents that actually can do it should be encouraged to have as many children as possible. This would have its own consequences, but we need to somehow combine. We need to somehow combine the idea that parentage is an absolute responsibility which you cannot opt out of, which you can opt out of at the start, but you can't renegotiate the agreement you signed after the kid is born, right? You can always have an abortion. Abortion should be free, safe, and frequent. Contraception should be free. And from like a feminist perspective, you could also say that you have no idea. Okay, if you are a guy, you have no idea how much money, how often women are like fleeced of their money, because like a woman's haircut costs 5 times as much as a man's haircut at the very least. There's a luxury tax on female hygiene products, and yeah, it's bizarre, right? Imagine, imagine if toothpaste had a luxury tax on it. That's retarded. It's objectively unjust. So there has to be like some sort of policy to make sure that the okay. So if oil industry is under state control anyway, so there wouldn't even be a law necessary, right? We could just artificially set fixed prices for anything. So the economy issue isn't even that complicated. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe I get a chance to enact all of this. Maybe I don't know. I'm not really a born leader, but and not currently in any active in any way active politically. So I don't know how I would actually become dictator. Maybe by pure luck. Um, but if I was, I would do it like that. So let's say what you think. Is this idea I've proposed totally dystopian, or is it like kinda interesting or kinda smart? I know. Um, Give me feedback on this. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you dislike, and we're going to see each other maybe during the week if I get a new idea for a video. So, anyways, calling from like the forest of Hyperborea. I gotta go back and goodbye.